China's Type 055 destroyer represents a massive leap forward for the People's Liberation Army Navy. And honestly, it's pretty impressive when you look at what they've accomplished. These ships started entering service in 2020, and they're now the backbone escorts for China's aircraft carriers and long-range naval operations. Think of them as China's answer to America's most advanced destroyers, but with their own unique approach. What makes these ships stand out is their firepower capacity. We're talking about 112 vertical launch system cells that can hold different types of missiles, from air defense interceptors like the HHQ-9 to anti-ship cruise missiles and even land attack weapons. That's more missile capacity than most American destroyers carry. The forward section holds 64 cells while the rear packs another 48, giving commanders serious flexibility in how they load out for different missions. The radar systems are where things get really interesting. China equipped these destroyers with dual-band AESA radar arrays, meaning they can track targets at different frequencies simultaneously. The Type 346B system combines S-band and X-band panels in an integrated mass design that looks pretty futuristic. This setup gives them excellent situational awareness and the ability to guide multiple missiles at once. In terms of raw destructive potential, these are the largest non-American surface warships by both size and missile capacity. They outgun the latest American Burke-class destroyers in pure magazine depth, though they fall slightly short of South Korea's heavily armed Sejong-class ships. Production is ramping up fast, with China building these in double digits. However, there are some question marks. While the hardware looks solid, nobody outside China really knows how well their combat software integrates everything during complex scenarios. Their land attack missile options also seem more limited compared to what American ships carry. Still, compared to their predecessor, the Type 052D with only 64 launch cells, the Type 055 represents a quantum leap in capability and shows China is serious about projecting naval power far from home. The American DDG-1000 Zumwalt has had quite the journey from its original conception to what it's becoming today. Originally designed as a next-generation destroyer with revolutionary gun systems, the Navy had to completely rethink this ship's purpose when the advanced ammunition for its main guns became too expensive to produce. Instead of scrapping the program, they've transformed these destroyers into something potentially more dangerous: hypersonic missile platforms. The transformation centers around removing the failed gun systems and installing 12 conventional prompt-strike hypersonic missile tubes. These weapons can reach targets anywhere in the world within an hour, traveling at speeds that make them nearly impossible to intercept. Combined with the ship's existing 80 vertical launch cells for standard missiles like Tomahawks and air defense interceptors, you're looking at a platform that can strike with unprecedented speed and precision. What really sets the Zumwalt apart is its stealth design and massive power generation capability. The angular, low-profile hull makes it much harder to detect on radar compared to conventional warships. Meanwhile, its integrated electric propulsion system generates 78 megawatts of power, enough to support future directed energy weapons that other ships simply can't operate. This combination of stealth and raw electrical capacity opens up possibilities for weapon systems we're only beginning to explore. The catch is that there are only 3 of these ships, and they've been expensive and time-consuming to build and modify. Removing the gun systems also means they've lost their ability to provide traditional naval gunfire support for ground operations. But when you consider what they bring to the table, that trade-off might be worth it. With those 12 hypersonic missiles, a single Zumwalt could potentially take out high-value targets or enemy ships before anyone even knows what hit them. While other destroyers might carry more total missiles, none can deliver the kind of long-range, high-speed precision strike capability that these converted ships now possess. They've essentially become the Navy's ultimate first-strike weapon. When people talk about modern naval warfare, the Arleigh Burke Flight 3 destroyer deserves serious respect as America's workhorse of the seas. These ships represent the latest evolution of a design that's been protecting American interests since the late 1980s, but don't let that fool you into thinking they're outdated. The Flight 3 variant brings game-changing upgrades that keep these destroyers at the cutting edge of naval technology. The star of the show is the AN/SPY-6 radar system, which represents a massive leap forward in detection capability. This isn't just an incremental improvement over previous versions. The SPY-6 can spot targets that older systems would miss entirely, and it excels at simultaneously tracking ballistic missiles, aircraft, and surface threats. That sensor advantage translates directly into combat effectiveness, allowing these ships to engage threats that other vessels might not even detect until it's too late. In terms of firepower, Flight 3 destroyers pack 96 vertical launch cells loaded with a flexible mix of weapons. You'll find long-range air defense missiles, anti-submarine rockets, Tomahawk cruise missiles, and advanced interceptors all sharing space in those launchers. While that's fewer cells than what China's Type Warship 055 carries, the American advantage lies in decades of combat experience and an unmatched logistics network that keeps these ships supplied and ready. The real strength here isn't just the individual ship, but the entire ecosystem supporting it. American crews train extensively with these systems. The maintenance network spans the globe, and the tactical doctrines have been refined through actual combat operations. That institutional knowledge and support infrastructure gives Flight 3 destroyers capabilities that raw specifications don't capture. Sure, the basic hull design traces back to the 1980s, and some newer foreign designs carry more missiles. But when you combine proven reliability with cutting-edge sensors and the world's most experienced Navy operating them, these destroyers punch well above their weight class. They might not have the biggest magazine, but their ability to actually find and engage targets effectively makes them genuinely formidable opponents. South Korea's Sejong the Great destroyers are absolute monsters when it comes to raw firepower capacity, and they've earned that reputation for good reason. The first batch entered service between 2008 and 2012, specifically designed to handle the unique threats South Korea faces from North Korea's massive missile arsenal. Now, with Batch 2 ships rolling out, these destroyers are getting even more sophisticated. What immediately grabs your attention about these ships is their incredible missile capacity. The original Batch the Wine destroyers pack 128 vertical launch cells, which is more than any other destroyer class currently sailing. That's a mix of 80 American Mk-41 cells and 48 Korean KVLS cells, giving them flexibility to carry everything from air defense missiles to indigenous Hyunmoo cruise missiles for land attack. When you're potentially facing hundreds of incoming missiles from across the DMZ, having that kind of defensive firepower makes perfect sense. The newer Batch 2 ships are taking things up another notch, with updated Aegis baseline systems that provide much better ballistic missile defense capabilities. The original ships were powerful, but used older combat systems that couldn't fully exploit their massive missile load against modern threats. These upgrades address that limitation while maintaining the impressive magazine depth that makes these destroyers so formidable. From a regional perspective, these ships are perfectly tailored for South Korea's strategic needs. They're designed to intercept swarms of North Korean missiles while simultaneously striking back with their own land attack capabilities. The indigenous weapons integration also means South Korea isn't entirely dependent on American suppliers for critical munitions. Looking at pure destructive potential, no other non-American surface combatant comes close to matching their missile capacity. While newer ships might have better individual systems or more advanced radars, when it comes to sustained firepower in a prolonged engagement, the Sejong-class stands alone. They represent South Korea's commitment to defending itself against one of the world's most missile-heavy militaries, and their massive magazines give them the staying power to handle whatever gets thrown at them. Japan's Maya-class destroyers might not grab headlines like some of their larger counterparts, but these ships represent a masterclass in focused naval engineering. Commissioned in the early 2020s, these destroyers were Japan's first Aegis ships, designed from the ground up with ballistic missile defense as a primary mission rather than an afterthought. That design philosophy shows in every aspect of how they operate. The technical capabilities of these ships are genuinely cutting edge. They run the most advanced Aegis combat system available, designated Baseline 9C, which gives them unprecedented ability to track and engage multiple types of threats simultaneously. More importantly, they're equipped with cooperative engagement capability, meaning they can share targeting data instantly with American ships and aircraft in the area. This networking capability essentially turns individual ships into nodes in a much larger defensive system. When it comes to missile interception, these destroyers excel at their specialty. They've successfully tested the SM-3 block YIA interceptor, which can knock down intermediate-range ballistic missiles well outside Earth's atmosphere. Plans call for adding SM-6 missiles, which would give them the ability to engage aircraft, ships, and even some ballistic missiles with the same weapon system. That versatility is exactly what modern naval warfare demands. The trade-off for this specialization is magazine space. With fewer vertical launch cells than ships like the Korean Sejong-class, Maya-class destroyers have to make tough choices about their missile loadouts. Heavy ballistic missile defense missions can quickly fill up their magazines, leaving less room for other weapons. But that's really a reflection of Japan's strategic priorities, rather than a design flaw. Within the broader context of Pacific defense, these ships punch well above their weight class. Their ability to integrate seamlessly with allied systems while providing world-class missile defense makes them invaluable assets. They might not carry the most missiles or have the biggest guns, but their technological sophistication and networking capabilities make them incredibly effective at their intended mission of protecting Japan and supporting allied operations. The Ticonderoga-class cruisers are the grizzled veterans of modern naval warfare, and while they're showing their age, these ships still command serious respect on today's oceans. Built during the 1980s at the height of the Cold War, many have already been retired, but the remaining active cruisers continue proving their worth in an era of increasingly sophisticated threats. What makes these cruisers special isn't fancy new technology, it's their absolutely massive missile capacity. With up to 122 vertical launch cells, these ships can carry more firepower than almost any surface combatant afloat. That translates to sustained combat capability that newer, smaller ships simply can't match. When you need to maintain air defense coverage for hours while simultaneously launching cruise missile strikes, that magazine depth becomes invaluable. The command and control capabilities of these cruisers also set them apart from destroyers. They were specifically designed to serve as flagships for carrier battle groups and surface action groups with enlarged combat information centers and enhanced communication suites. Even with older radar systems compared to the latest ships, their ability to coordinate complex multi-ship operations remains unmatched. However, reality is catching up with these aging platforms. Hull maintenance is becoming increasingly expensive and time-consuming, with some ships spending more time in repair yards than at sea. The Navy is steadily retiring these cruisers as their maintenance costs spiral upward, making each remaining ship more precious but also more of a logistical burden. Despite these limitations, active Ticonderoga cruisers remain formidable weapons platforms. Their sheer missile capacity means they can sustain longer engagements than newer ships with smaller magazines. While their sensors may not be as advanced as what you'll find on Flight 3 Burkes or foreign competitors, they compensate with raw firepower and decades of operational experience. These ships represent the ultimate expression of the missile farm concept, and until newer platforms can match their magazine capacity, they'll continue serving as the heavy hitters of the American fleet. Russia's Admiral Nakhimov represents one of the most ambitious naval modernization projects of recent years, though whether it'll live up to the hype remains an open question. This massive nuclear-powered battlecruiser recently returned to sea trials in 2025 after spending literally decades in overhaul and refit. When you consider that this ship was originally designed in the 1980s as the ultimate Cold War surface combatant, bringing it into the modern era required essentially gutting and rebuilding everything inside. The scale of this vessel is genuinely impressive. At over 25,000 tons, it dwarfs most modern destroyers and cruisers, providing enormous internal space for weapons and systems. Russian officials claim the modernization includes new vertical launch systems and upgraded air defenses, with some reports suggesting it can carry the hypersonic Zircon missiles that have been making headlines. If those claims prove accurate, this would be a ship capable of engaging targets at ranges and speeds that few other surface combatants can match. The challenge with evaluating this ship comes down to separating Russian claims from actual capabilities. Moscow has a history of overstating their military achievements, and the true extent of Admiral Nakhimov's modernization remains murky. What we do know is that maintaining a nuclear-powered surface combatant is incredibly expensive and complex, especially one that spent decades partially dismantled in a shipyard. From a strategic perspective, this ship represents Russia's attempt to field a genuine flagship capable of projecting power far from home waters. The nuclear propulsion gives it virtually unlimited range, while its size allows for weapon loads that smaller ships can't accommodate. The question is whether Russia can actually afford to operate and maintain such a complex platform while dealing with other military priorities. If the Admiral Nakhimov performs as advertised, it could represent a significant capability boost for the Russian Navy. But given the costs involved and the small size of the class, it's more likely to serve as a prestige project than a game-changing military asset. Still, any ship potentially carrying hypersonic missiles deserves careful attention from naval strategists worldwide. India's Visakhapatnam-class destroyers showcase a completely different approach to modern naval warfare, prioritizing devastating anti-ship capability over the massive missile magazines favored by other nations. The most recent addition, INS Imphal, joined the fleet in December 2023 as part of India's steady push toward naval self-reliance and regional power projection in the Indian Ocean. What sets these destroyers apart is their incredible anti-ship punch, delivered through 16 BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles. These aren't your typical subsonic ship killers that opponents might have time to intercept. BrahMos missiles streak toward their targets at nearly 3 times the speed of sound, giving enemy ships precious little time to react once they are detected. A single salvo from one of these destroyers could potentially overwhelm the defenses of even heavily protected warships. The air defense suite centers around 32 Barrack 8 surface-to-air missiles, which provide solid area coverage but represent fewer defensive rounds than what larger destroyers carry. This reflects India's strategic priorities and operational environment, where the primary threats come from surface ships and aircraft rather than massive ballistic missile barrages. The MFSTA-EAR radar system provides the eyes and ears for these engagements, offering respectable detection capabilities in a compact package. These ships represent India's growing confidence in indigenous defense technology. While earlier Indian warships relied heavily on foreign systems, the Visakhapatnam class incorporates significantly more domestically produced equipment. This isn't just about national pride, it's about strategic independence and the ability to maintain and upgrade these ships without depending on foreign suppliers. From a tactical standpoint, these destroyers are perfectly suited for the kind of naval warfare India might face in the Indian Ocean. Their BrahMos missiles give them the ability to engage enemy surface combatants at standoff ranges, while their helicopter facilities and anti-submarine weapons provide balanced capabilities for escort and patrol missions. They might not carry the most missiles overall, but their supersonic anti-ship weapons make them genuinely dangerous opponents that any naval force would have to respect and plan around carefully. China's Type 052DL destroyers don't grab the same attention as their bigger Type 055 siblings, but these workhorses form the actual backbone of China's rapidly expanding fleet. The extended variant features a lengthened hull specifically designed to operate the larger Z-20 helicopter, giving these ships significantly better anti-submarine warfare capabilities than their predecessors. Chinese shipyards continue churning these destroyers out at an impressive pace, making them the most numerous modern surface combatants in the People's Liberation Army Navy. The weapon systems on these ships reflect a balanced approach to naval warfare rather than specializing in any particular area. With 64 universal vertical launch cells, they can carry a flexible mix of anti-air, anti-ship, and land attack missiles depending on the mission requirements. The 130mm main gun provides solid surface fire support, while modern close-in weapon systems handle last-ditch defense against incoming missiles. What really matters is how all these systems work together as part of larger task forces. The electronic suite represents steady technological progress rather than revolutionary breakthroughs. These ships mount capable AESA radar arrays that provide good situational awareness and fire control, though they lack the raw power and sophistication of the dual-band systems found on the Type 055. Still, they're more than adequate for most operational scenarios China faces in the South China Sea and beyond. Where these destroyers truly shine is in their collective impact rather than individual capabilities. While 64 missile cells might seem modest compared to American cruisers or Korean destroyers, having dozens of these ships spread across multiple task forces multiplies China's naval reach exponentially. They're designed to work in coordination with Type 055 destroyers and aircraft carriers, filling essential escort and patrol roles that larger ships are too valuable to waste on routine missions. The real strength of the Type 052DL program lies in its production numbers and operational flexibility. These ships give China the ability to maintain a persistent naval presence across vast ocean areas while keeping the more capable Type 055s available for high-priority missions. They represent quantity with quality, providing the numerical foundation that modern naval power requires. Russia's Admiral Gorshkov-class frigates represent Moscow's most serious attempt at building modern surface combatants since the Soviet collapse. And despite their relatively small size, these ships pack some genuinely impressive capabilities. The lead ship made headlines in 2023 when Russian officials claimed it deployed with the hypersonic Zircon missiles, marking a potential game-changer for naval warfare if those claims prove accurate. What makes these frigates particularly interesting is their weapon flexibility within a compact hull. The 16 UKSK vertical launch cells can accommodate multiple missile types, from the proven Caliber cruise missiles that have seen combat use to the supersonic Onyx anti-ship missiles. If the Zircon hypersonic missiles are truly operational, these frigates become capable of engaging targets at speeds and ranges that most ships simply cannot match. That's an extraordinary capability for a vessel displacing only around 5,400 tons. The defensive systems center around the Redut surface-to-air missile system paired with Polyment ESA radars, providing respectable air defense coverage for such a small platform. While they can't match the magazine depth of larger destroyers, these frigates offer enough defensive capability to operate independently or provide meaningful escort services for larger ships. The compact design also makes them more affordable to build and maintain than full-size destroyers. The biggest limitation is simply scale and production capacity. With only a handful of these ships completed and more under construction at a painfully slow pace, Russia struggles to field enough modern surface combatants to matter strategically. Each individual ship may be capable, but naval power ultimately comes down to numbers and presence, areas where Russia continues to lag behind other major navies. Still, the concept deserves respect. A frigate armed with hypersonic missiles represents an asymmetric approach that could pose serious challenges for larger, more expensive warships. These platforms demonstrate how smaller navies might leverage advanced weapons technology to offset numerical disadvantages, even if Russia's execution hasn't quite lived up to the theoretical potential of the design. Britain's Type 45 destroyers have earned their reputation the hard way, proving their worth in actual combat rather than just specification sheets. These ships were designed specifically as air warfare specialists, and recent operations in the Red Sea demonstrated exactly why that focused approach matters. HMS Diamond made naval history by successfully intercepting an anti-ship ballistic missile in combat, marking the Royal Navy's first missile kill since the Falklands War over 3 decades ago. The air defense systems on these destroyers represent some of the most sophisticated technology afloat. The combination of Samson rotating ASA radar and the fixed S-1850M long-range radar gives these ships exceptional detection capabilities across multiple threat types. The PAM's missile system, firing Aster 30 interceptors, provides engagement ranges that most other ships simply can't match. Current upgrades are adding 24 additional KM missile cells, boosting total missile capacity from 48 to 72 rounds, and significantly improving their sustained engagement capability. What sets these destroyers apart isn't just their sensors and missiles, but how effectively they integrate everything together. The combat system can simultaneously track hundreds of targets while engaging multiple threats with different missile types. That level of situational awareness and coordination becomes crucial when facing the kind of complex, multi-axis attacks that modern conflicts demand. The ships haven't been without their problems, particularly with the innovative but troublesome WR-21 propulsion system that caused reliability issues early in their service life. However, ongoing improvement programs have largely addressed these concerns, allowing the ships to maintain operational tempo without constant breakdowns. From a strategic perspective, these destroyers punch well above their weight class in air defense missions. While they might not carry as many missiles as larger ships, their ability to successfully engage advanced threats like ballistic missiles gives them capabilities that few other platforms possess. The Red Sea deployments proved that when properly employed, these ships can handle some of the most challenging air defense scenarios currently facing naval forces worldwide. The Horizon-class destroyers represent Europe's collaborative approach to advanced naval warfare, with France and Italy each operating 2 of these sophisticated air defense specialists. While they may not make headlines like some larger platforms, these ships have quietly provided NATO with reliable theater air defense capabilities for nearly 2 decades. Now, with mid-life upgrades moving from planning into actual production, they're set to remain relevant well into the 2030s. These destroyers were built around a focused mission, protecting high-value targets from air and missile threats. The 48 Silver vertical launch cells carry a mix of Aster 15 and Aster 30 missiles, giving them both point defense and area coverage capabilities. The MPAR radar system provides solid detection and tracking, while the PIM's combat system ties everything together into a comprehensive air defense picture. It's not the biggest magazine you'll find, but the quality of the sensors and missiles makes up for the smaller quantity. The ongoing midlife upgrade program addresses the reality that naval technology moves fast, and ships need constant updates to stay effective. The PAM's NG system brings enhanced electronic warfare resistance and improved engagement capabilities, while sensor refreshes ensure these ships can detect and track the latest generation of threats. These aren't just minor tweaks, they're substantial capability improvements that extend the useful life of these platforms significantly. What makes these ships particularly valuable is their integration with broader NATO networks. European naval cooperation allows these 4 destroyers to share targeting data and coordinate engagements with other allied ships, multiplying their effectiveness beyond what their individual specifications might suggest. They've proven their worth in actual deployments, providing air defense coverage for carrier groups and amphibious operations. The limitation is simply numbers. With only 4 hulls split between 2 navies, these ships can't be everywhere at once. However, their specialized capabilities and ongoing upgrades ensure they'll continue serving as valuable assets for European maritime security. They demonstrate how focused, high-quality platforms can provide disproportionate value when properly integrated into larger defense networks.